Good evening, wherever you're joining us from. This is the Instructional Design Systems Masterclass. It's a four-part series we've put together here at Hailerz. And it's really just seeing who is interested in learning more about instructional design, or e-learning, as we like to call it. So instructional design is the study of learning. So pretty much thinking about how people learn, how people like to learn. And it's especially useful in corporate learning, or adult learning, as we like to call it. And there's several methods for instructional design, and e-learning is only one of them. So e-learning, also called online learning, is learning that you take via a computer, your laptop, your phones, mobile devices. And a good example is what we're doing right now. So we're learning online because I'm not where you are and you're not where I am. But we're still able to learn this way. And the learning is taking place in real time. And there are several types of online learning. So there is the video-based learning, where you just watch a video and that's it, or a learning that takes place in real time, like this one, where you're able to get the knowledge, provide feedback, answer questions from an instructor, and maybe even take a knowledge check. And there's a self-paced learning, which happens not in real time, but in the learner's own time, where they're able to pause, play, interact with a learning material that's presented on their computers or mobile devices. Now, if that's clear, we're going to define it even a bit further and say there are several tools that are being used to build online learning. And today we're going to learn about one of those tools. Kindly mute if you just joined. We're going to learn about one of the tools for building online learning today, and that is called Articulate Storyline 360. So it's by far the most popular tool for building online learning. I think it has over 60% of the market share. It's a little like PowerPoint, so it's easy to use. And my goal today is to help you discover Articulate Storyline and how easy it is to use. So by the end of this training, you should be a little bit proficient at using Articulate Storyline. And it's even though it's not a beginner class, I will try my best to kind of go back and just teach it as I know it, so in a way that's more accessible to you. And I'll go through this presentation really quickly. That's going to ground us on what we're about to learn. Now, who can answer? What's the name of the tool we're trying to learn today? All right, go ahead. Did someone raise their hand? Yeah, Paul, please go ahead.
Articulate Storyline.
Okay, awesome. And thanks for speaking up. I'm just making sure that you're following along. So today we're really going to be talking about working with layers and variables inside of Articulate Storyline. And don't let any of these scare you. So layers, I'll explain in a little bit. Variables, you might have some experience with variables if you're into web development or or any other type of coding, you might know what variables are already. So that knowledge is going to apply in this class. If you have that knowledge, this may seem familiar to you. And if not, it's totally okay. As far as what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at how to add layers inside a storyline. We're going to talk about how to copy and duplicate layers, and we're going to talk a little bit about working with audio. And finally, we're going to talk about variables. And then we'll take a look at some examples. And the way I'm thinking about it, I think we should actually start with examples. So that way, at least you have a good knowledge of what a finished storyline course could look like. Now, if you've taken an online learning class in the past, this might look familiar to you. So whether it's at your company or maybe you had to take a cybersecurity class as part of your onboarding requirements, this will all sound familiar to you. So let me pull up a few examples here. And this time I am going to pull one from my personal portfolio. Just to look at what it is. So this really is an interaction that's built in using storylines. So it's not your typical e-learning course where you have text and images, animation, and all of that. This one is just a simple interaction. It's part of a course that I built, and it's supposed to help the learner understand how to put on PPE equipment. And PPE, I'm not sure what the definition is, but it's some type of protective gear that you put on if you're a construction worker, for example, or you work in the health department. So here is the lesson. It doesn't really look like a lesson, but it is. So here we're telling you, or I'm telling you that, this is what the safety glasses look like. This is what the hat looks like. And here's where it's located on the model's body, right? So even though it doesn't feel like a lesson, there's no instructor, but you can still get that full gist just by looking at this image, right? So because we never test people, we never test learners until we teach them. So this is assuming that you've been taught this material, and it's saying there's a set of instructions right here. It says study the image carefully, then hit start to begin. So you study the image, note every item on the screen and where it goes, and then hit start to begin your assessment. So when you hit start, you see how that changes. So that whole animation that happens, all of that was created inside of Storyline. This whole model. So the graphics were created inside of Illustrator and then brought into Storyline. And then each piece was animated using Storyline. And I'll show you some of how that was achieved. So I also added like a hover state. So you see how things change when I mouse over that image. So it has a hover state that just shows the learner that this item is being selected at the moment, right? If I were to land on this, it changes and so on, right? So it's telling me that this item is ready to be dragged. It's ready to be clicked, right? And so this, don't forget, this is an assessment. So the instruction here has changed to drag the item into the correct spot and then hit submit. So I start dragging, and you see that's another state. So that's a drag state. So the drag state, and each time if it's heading to the correct place, you see is future changes. You see the model's future changes to a smile. That's also providing feedback for the learner to say, you're doing great, keep going. But if I were to go somewhere else, it's going to say, nope. And that's all a simple interaction inside of, well, not simple, it's a bit complex. I won't lie to you, but we'll figure out how to achieve some of these, right? So the boots, I'm guessing, goes on the leg, the gloves go on the hand, and the hat goes on the head, and that goes beside the model. You see that animation that happens when I get that? And then you can hit submit, and you get your feedback, which tells the learner they've done the right thing. If they didn't get the right, if they didn't place it correctly, it's going to give them an incorrect feedback. So that's just one way to use Storyline. You can develop an interaction just like this one, or you can create something that's very simple. Do we have any questions so far? All right. If there are no questions, we're going to get into Storyline and try to see how exactly this was or could have been created, right? So I'm going to pull up a slide like this one, which contains several interactions that I've created for this lesson. So this is Storyline. This is what the Storyline environment looks like. You do have a canvas, which is this white box. Well, let me start with a blank scene. So it's more, so you see what it's like when you get into Storyline. You're going to have this blank scene, and then you can start adding elements on that scene. So you have a number of tabs up here that you can start to explore. You have the insert tab that has most of your graphics, your video, audio elements, and you can explore those and see what, what elements you can bring onto the stage, just like PowerPoint, right? In this case, I am going to make a box. So this box is just an element. You can move it, you can place it anywhere you want to. So this could also be a tab. And I'm just going to call this 1. So I can type in the box. I can copy, Control C, Control V to duplicate it. Or I can right click, just like many other tools, right? Copy and paste, right? So I can paste that a few times, make this 2, make this 3. And then I can also have a different box that is, maybe these are the buttons that you click, and then this is the information you want to display after clicking on each box, right? And feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have any questions. So to even differentiate this even further, I could make them different colors, right? Why not? Like, learners like to see what's different about it. Well, I shouldn't say learners like, it goes into psychology, like how do people learn? What do people want to see, right? This looks more fun, I'm assuming. And it's more intuitive when you see something like this. And there's several ways we can do this, right? We can maybe change this box for every time someone clicks on the item, right? And one way that we can do that is to say, we can create layers for this. And this is just one way to do this, right? There's several ways to achieve the same thing. You can create a layer. So here's where your layers are located. You can say orange, right? And you can open up a new layer down at the bottom. Is everyone following along? Just please give a thumbs up or say something so I know you're still out there. Actually, this should be blue and then orange. And then I think I have, oops, then I have green, right? So I could duplicate this box for each layer and I'm going to color them in a second. Did you see what I did? So I just copied this same box and then pasted it on each layer. And the good thing is that it stays in this on the same spot. So you don't have to move it. For this one, I could go to format, make it green. This one, go make it orange. And this one, keep it as blue. So I think it's this blue. All right. So our goal really is to click on these guys and have this change. And the way we're going to do that is to add triggers. So you can you can click your tab and then click on triggers and then say show layer blue, right? When is this happening? What's the action? The action is to show the layer. All of these are presets, so you just have to select what makes sense. So it's almost like using an AI prompt. You're just determining what the box is going to do. So you're asking the box to show the layer blue when the user clicks. It could be several things. It could be when the mouse hovers over, or when the animation completes, and so on. But in this case, we want to keep it simple. We want to say it's when the user clicks rectangle 1. Since rectangle 1 is selected, it's going to be rectangle 1 in this case. And you can also see the red outline that shows you that's what you're about to select. So we're just going to keep it simple and click on rectangle 1. Conditions we don't really need right now, so we're just going to hit OK. And the trigger has been created. So that's just one trigger, right? Now you have to create one for. So the trigger is saying show blue when the user clicks rectangle 1. And you can do the same thing for orange too, and say show layer orange when the user clicks rectangle 2. I'll just do the rest quickly. Show green when the user clicks rectangle 3. Super easy, right? And to test your concept, you can just go to preview the slide. And that takes a minute to load. Any questions so far? Or is this super simple? You can do this, right? So you see that? It was gray, and when I clicked on 1, it changes to blue. When I click on 2, it changes to orange. It changes to green. So that simple interaction is a foundational knowledge that you need for several other things, right? So, for example, let's say we're not working with shapes any longer, and we want to work with an avatar instead. So you could be working with, because you have several avatars that you can select from inside of Storyline. Let's say you want to have it be a human this time. Let's just, you know, we could change this to say smiling, and we could change this to angry. And we could change this to neutral. No, maybe not neutral. What other expression is there? Worried. To do worried right there. So for her, for the resting state, we probably want to change this to something neutral, right? And so she has different poses. That's the model right there. She has different poses which you can explore. So if you want something neutral, you can just have her standing, right? Maybe she's not even smiling at all, right? And so you can copy her, take her to each layer, paste her there. At least just have copies of the same lady. So this is replacing all the boxes. And I'm just showing you how ideas come to be, right? So you can change her pose on this layer to something else. And I know she is supposed to be smiling, so something positive. So maybe she's smiling on this page. And on the orange one, she's angry. So change the pose to something negative. Maybe she's upset. Maybe she's upset about something. And on the last one, maybe she's worried. Replace pose. We're going to still go for something negative, and then maybe she's just worried about something, right? So it's the same thing. You already have your actions set up. You don't have to do anything. So maybe this could be a course about dealing with emotions, and you want the learner to engage with your course. You don't want it to just be text and then an image, but instead you want them to be able to control how this person feels. So, is it better to just write, or when someone smiles, here's how to smile? Or would you like your learner to experience and feel like they're making that decision for that person by making them smile? Does this communicate better with your learner and gets them better knowledge than if they just read it? Now they can control how that person feels, right? And it's a better interaction. Does anybody have any comments before we move on? Let me make sure there's still folks on the line. Okay, can everyone hear me? And did that make sense? A thumbs up or come off mute? Paul? Okay, awesome. Thank you. And you do notice that, well, that's some little details we can go over in another class. So as far as adding variables, now this is where variables come in, right? So variables is saying that you can add scores for each time somebody maybe clicks. I mean, there are different ways to gamify this, right? So you can say, and let me make this bolder so you can see it. There's several ways to gamify this. You can say for every time the learner clicks, maybe they get a point. I don't know why you would do that in this case, but let's just assume you want to do that. So go to icons. Again, that's also inbuilt. You can just add a trophy. You can add a trophy and have that up here. And then you can add a variable. Now here's where you add your variable. It's in this corner right here, that little X. Remember X from algebra and from taking math, like X is a variable, like it can be anything. So you pick up your variable panel, and it opens up this pop-up, which I do already have some variables in there, but I don't want to use any of them. I want to start a new variable. So I can say this is, what's another name for score, since we already have score? Or I can just delete that one to make it easier. So let me delete score and then add a new variable called score, right? So now I have variable score, and it's asking me what type of variable is it, right? I can leave that as, I can have the default value be 0. So that's just saying it's defining that variable score as 0. Remember, X is a variable. It can be any number, but now you're saying, I don't want to call it X. I want to call it score. And I want that value to be 0. So you add your default value as 0, and then you hit OK. Now, that doesn't change anything on what we're doing. But if you want to recall that variable, then you have to go to and create a text box. So your text box, everybody see that text box? You can now type in percentage, and don't get confused just yet. You can type in percentage. It's just standard. Okay. Now you're about to call that variable. So you're opening the door and saying, okay, I want to call this variable to come and display in this text box. And you call it by typing the name of the variable. So just like calling somebody's name, you're saying, come here. And then after they get in, then you shut the door with another percentage sign. And when you do that and click outside, that becomes, remember, we said score is 0. So your score is what shows up here, right? And don't forget our mission. Our mission here is to have this variable change whenever the user clicks on any of these guys. And to do that, we're going to have to make this tab talk to this variable. And the way that we do that is through the trigger. So the trigger is a type of action that we create. Remember, your variable is here, the trigger is here. So you pull another trigger that already has actions. This time we're not showing layers, right? This time we're adjusting a variable. And I don't expect you to already know that, right? But I'm letting you know now that there's a trigger, an action called adjust variable inside of your trigger panel. So you can select that guy and then say adjust variable. Now you want to call your variable, which is score, right? You can say add. You kind of have to mess with these guys to really get it to work. So you're trying to say this is a variable, right? So you want to say add or set score to, sorry, this isn't quite working the way I intended. You're trying to say set score to variable. Sorry, set. You're trying to choose value, right? That's what you're trying to do. So it's yeah, this isn't what I intended. Can anyone figure this out? So we're trying to adjust the variable, and we're trying to say adjust variable. Okay, so text entry actually is what we need to adjust. So you're not adjusting the variable, it's the text entry. All right, this is really weird. I think they've changed something on this program. Let's start that over again. Scratch. So we're trying to adjust the variable, right? So we're saying adjust variable, and it's variable score to okay, this program is going to call me a liar for today. That is very strange. It's supposed to say add score, so you can add one value to that variable and so on. But that doesn't seem to be working on this one. So let me check one of my past projects and see what's happening. So it's yeah, so this is what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to set the variable score. All right. That's pretty weird. So let's roll with it, right? So adjust variable. Let's see what else we can do with it. Oh, Paul, do you have any idea what's going on here? I know you have some experience with Storyline. Okay, so let's set variable to value 1 when the user clicks rectangle 1. So this is at the simplest level, right? But I can assure you there's a way to add more numbers. So you can set that to value 1, right? You see where that could be useful? Yeah, and you can do the same for each one. So you can also say set variable to set variable score to value 2 when the user clicks that one. And then you can say tree. So same thing. Clicking 1, 2, 3. All right. Let's move on from that. Other ways you can use variable is you can use it to define a set of learning objectives. In this case, I have used apples in a course that's based upon growth mindset. So instead of just writing my learning objectives, I have created it in a way where the user can click on start and they're able to reveal text just based upon clicking the apples. Did somebody have a question? I heard a beep.
Select the apples to view the learning objectives.
So you can
First,
go 1.
we'll explore growth and fixed mindsets. You'll learn what distinguishes a growth mindset from a fixed mindset. Next, we'll delve into how an Additionally, finally, we'll explore the role of a growth mindset in promoting diversity and collaboration in your workplace. You'll also explore strategies for leveraging diverse perspectives and backgrounds to enhance both personal and collective growth. Through engaging with these topics, you'll gain valuable insights and practical tools to navigate the complexities of professional environments with confidence and effectiveness.
Now, does adding, this type of interaction using apples, does it help you make your point about a growth mindset? I think it does. I mean, there's several references. So as learning designers, you have to maybe think more about how your user is experiencing the piece of learning and what could be engaging to them. Like someone might just find it better to click and get that information. That way you're not throwing all of the text on the slide at once. All right. So I'm going to close this. and so this was built using that same principle, right? So instead of using boxes, now I'm using apples, and I have the same layers, right? So you see how that could have happened. Now we're clicking on the apples to get to the layers using the same exact principles as before. And now we're adding voiceovers, which is easy to add. You can go to insert, you can go to audio, text to speech, you can type in your text and it converts it to speech. You can choose from any one of these voices that sounds natural to you. You can even include closed captions to make it even more engaging. So the same principles. And this is just showing you how that simple principle can be used in your course building. This is another slide that uses simple shape to text box, and you'll see what that looks like in a second. Does somebody have a question in the chat?
In healthcare, there are traditionally three forms of inquiry: research, quality improvement QI, and EBP. While each follows a distinct process, they share common themes such as teamwork, critical thinking, and a commitment to improving healthcare. Select each puzzle piece to learn more.
So these are supposed to be an idea. This is supposed to be an idea, right? And so the learner needs to kind of click to understand each concept, right? So quality improvement is its own. And I could have used a square shape like a tab, but using a puzzle makes you understand that these guys need to work hand in hand. When they all are arranged together, then they form the central concept for what I'm trying to teach the learner. So add in this instruction, like select the puzzle piece to learn more. So it's also saying select that square shape to get more information.
Quality improvement. We know it works. Let's
So
make
I'm
it
able
work
to
for us.
focus on just that
QI
information.
focuses on
Quality improvement.
refining and applying.
And the same thing here. And you see how that grays out? That's done with a state change. So I'm telling Storyline to change the color of that shape to gray whenever I click on it.
EBP. What does the evidence?
Right?
Research.
So on.
Each approach plays a key role in improving healthcare. Insights.
So it's the same concept. It's, just having that same text, and then maybe this time we're including a hotspot where you can hide this layer using the same trigger concept, right? You can say hide layer when the timeline ends or something. Same concept for this one, but on this slide, I'm using some animations, which was created in another tool, but then it's using that same layer variable principle that we've already learned about. We're expert.
Together, these forms of inquiry drive continuous improvement in healthcare. Corresponding stops to learn more.
So for this one, I'm using a drag and drop, which is easy to create in Storyline. So I'm saying whenever this person drops this object, then
in the Johns Hopkins model, we use the PET
show this
process.
Animation, which is a
Practice
video.
question,
okay?
evidence, and translation.
And now it has a check mark, showing that I've visited that already.
EBP begins with identifying.
And I can do the same for each of these
Quality
guys.
improvement.
So imagine how many slides are on this. So each one has a video. So that's 1, 2, like 9 different pieces of information on this one slide. But I didn't just put all the text on the slide. I have created it in such a way that the learner can focus on, okay, what is EBP? Okay, here's the starting point. Here's the process. Here's the outcome. What is QI? Here's the starting point, process, outcome. That's where, information architecture really comes into place. Like, how do you place information in a way that's, you're not overwhelming the learner? but you're placing it in a way that makes sense. You're helping them learn without overwhelming them. That's the key. With this one, it's a flip card, which, and you may have taken this, you may have taken some online classes before and seen these things and not even paid attention to it. But you know, here's how it's built, right? So this card, which is just a box shape, a rounded rectangle in this case, and it's got two different states. So I have the first state, which is just this with some text, which I've colored, and you know, nothing really to it, right? Even though it looks polished and all that, it's just using shapes and icons and stuff that's all available to you inside a storyline. And then I also have the selected state, which shows the definition of each term, right? So I have some additional information in here. So what I'm telling the learner in this case is to, excuse me. What I'm telling the learner in this case is to click on each slide, click on each card, you know, almost like a flip card, like you're playing what or anything else. Like you flip the card and get more information. You flip the card, get more information. Now, does my learner find this interesting? Do they want to have control of what they see? I think so. You know, it's just always fun to place things in a way that's interesting for the learner to get them interested in learning. And this one was created just by saying, you know, what's the selected state? I just created a selected state. It's not using any triggers or variables or anything. It's just simply placing a card and saying, well, we can just do that quickly. It's simply placing a card here. I'm not sure why that's transparent or anything, but and then saying, here's a selected state. So you create a selected state and maybe you change that state to gray, for example, and you add all your text and information. So you hit done, and then you preview it. We have 10 more minutes. If you have questions, now will be the time to ask that question. So that didn't quite flip, and that's because I didn't add an animation to it. So I believe it's going to be the swivel, which is just, so there's sets of animation that you can add to your and sorry, I wasn't supposed to add it on the, I'm supposed to add it at the state level. I think that's what's missing here. So if I added it at the state level, well, I kind of have to cheat on this one. So let me copy and there isn't time to really explain what I'm doing, but you can watch, and you know, if you have questions, you can always reach out. So I'm going to just copy that. It's so you almost have to change this at the state level, which just means that you're adding that animation at the state level as opposed to on the main thing. So I'm just going to preview this and click and see what happens. You see that swivel? That's exactly what I wanted. And then there are other ways you can use this. So for this one, I have added voiceovers to each of these guys, which you can select them to hear what they're saying. So imagine these were all like witnesses to a crime, and you're trying to interrogate each person.
Click below to learn more about some of the groups that participate in society.
So you can ask each person, right? You click and get more information, kind of thing. And that's super easy to do. So that's just at the state level. You're saying the selected state. You're adding more information. And that's it. Like you just added a text box. So whenever the user clicks, so these are individual pieces, right? And I didn't even use so this is just the background, and I just put a box I made that box transparent so you can't see it. Then I added more information on this person. So the box is acting as the selected state. So this one doesn't even use triggers or anything complicated. It's just a real simple interaction. And yeah, and there's several types of interactions too. Like for this one, it's just a way for learners to reflect while they're learning. So you're asking them to pause and think about something you just taught them. So this is a way for them to take notes. And this slide was super easy to put together. It's just finding the right graphic and then
at this point, we can start thinking about what makes research credible. Type in 2 or 3 of your ideas here.
So I can start to say what makes research credible is blah, blah, blah. You know, it's almost like you can't really drag the pen or anything, but you can just get the sense, and you can play some music while you wait. Like all of this was just something, let's say you're a deep thinker and you want to, and then when you're done, you can hit submit, or you can print out your answers, but it's just a way to engage the learner even further. And something like this you would create with adding a text box, so like an input box and data entry that creates a variable for you that you can now call. So you can say set, that variable when the type value loses focus, but super easy again. And there are materials for these types of interactions all over the internet. So this is just a foundation for you. If you're interested, or remotely, if you've stayed to the end of this boring class, I think you may have a chance to become an instructional designer, and it's something that you really should look into doing. It's lucrative, I can tell you that. So any questions or observations? Anyone learn anything? Now is the time to provide feedback.
How can one earn with it by being an instructional system designer? How can I earn with it? And
Yeah.
who am I going to work for?
Next, let's review our work and whom we...
That's a great question. So instructional designers, we've been around for a while. I know I've been in the industry for about a decade now. And, when I first started out, it wasn't something like you would tell someone you're an instructional designer and they're like, what is that? But it's evolved since COVID. When people had to go home and work from home, remote work has made it where people now recognize who instructional designers are and what we do. So online learning has, definitely become more popular, and instructional designers put together online learning. So we're in corporate industries, pretty much any company you can think of, well, not serious companies. So, talking like banks, and, they all have some form of training department, and the training department usually sits in human resources. So, these are the folks who put together a training that employees take. So if you're serious about retaining your employees, you have to train them. And that's where instructional designers come into play. Now, not just putting together training, but creating training that's effective, that changes behavior. And there's several industries you can think of where the correct training could have adverse effect. for example, in the health field, if doctors and nurses are not properly trained, and the beauty about instructional design is, you can teach somebody who is, you can teach a lot of people at once, where it's cost effective. You don't have to fly everyone in to teach them at the same location. You can teach people, you can have 5,000, 10,000 people in a class all at once. So companies are starting to realize that benefits, and they're investing in their training field, and so on. So I hope that answers your question. It's a long answer, but yeah, as far as having a career in instructional design, there are several paths. You could, regardless of your major, you can, learning a tool such as this is probably the first step, as far as, just playing around with the tool, getting some content from ChatGPT or wherever, and building a course, and then creating a portfolio for yourself to say. But what I really like about the field is just that I'm able to teach people, to empower people, help people understand a new concept by the way that I've placed the information, and doing it in a way that's just unique, right? That helps them grab the concept is what's nice about it. So if you're someone who, so it's not it's teaching in a way, like you're a teacher, right? But at the same time, you're also a trainer. You're a corporate trainer. So you can either go the academic path and become an instructional designer at a college, or you can go the corporate path and become an instructional designer at a company. That sits in the training department, in the HR department. And most of your job would be to create trainings like this on the computer, or as an instructional designer, you can be a facilitator. You could be, there's several paths. You could be a content writer. So maybe you're just writing the content and not even, but for me, I'm an e-learning developer. So I develop trainings. Most of my job is to, maybe somebody else wrote the content and I put together the interaction. I look at the storyboard they provided and I made sense of it and thought, okay, how can I connect this to the learner in a way that, instead of using tables, why don't I put a dog behind a puzzle and help them, get the same information without, in a way that's fun. Like now the learner, maybe they reveal this one, then they reveal the next one. Someone knocking on my door. But I'm not trying to open the door, I'm not home. So anyways, that's the long and short of it. Does anyone have any other question? And I hope I answered your question, PBK.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I think we can draw the curtains here. I didn't really get to this interaction, but it's the same principles. I can tell you that. All right. Thanks for being a part of this and your patience. We have other session tomorrow, so make sure to join us. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. See you tomorrow, same time.